There are watches that look good, there are watches that feel and look just right. Let's talk about why that's more intriguing and complex than first impressions. Welcome back to Horological. Before you even raise your wrist, something in the proportions, the balance, the spacing, the overall visual equilibrium, it resonates in a way you recognise instantly, even if you can't articulate why. The sensation feels intuitive, natural, almost biological. That reaction is not luck, it's not mysticism, it's the result of proportional mathematics, quietly shaping watchmaking for generations. The golden ratio wasn't invented by Fibonacci, and it wasn't discovered by Leonardo da Vinci, but Leonardo used it often. Fibonacci described it and documented it for a Middle Ages European context. Together their legacies form the mathematical backbone behind some of the most beautiful objects ever made, from Renaissance art to the proportions of a perfect wristwatch. The golden ratio, the Fibonacci sequence, and the classical systems of visual harmony do not dictate watch design with literal formulas. Watchmakers do not take a 40mm case and multiply it by 1.618 to calculate anything. Instead, these principles appear in the relationships between elements, how forms scale up and down, how components occupy space, and how designers instinctively organise the architecture of a dial. The influence is subtle, but the results are profound. Case proportions, harmonic relationships, not literal ratios. One of the most reliable signatures of a well-balanced watch is the relationship between case diameter and lug-to-lug length. While not tied directly to the golden ratio, the proportions cluster around a natural, wrist-adapted zone that feels harmonious in a way that echoes classical design principles. The numbers are remarkably consistent. A Rolex Submariner at 40mm has a lug-to-lug of approximately 47.6mm, a ratio of about 1.19. The Omega Speedmaster Professional at 42mm, it sits at around 48.5 to 50mm lug-to-lug, roughly 1.6 to 1.9. Tudor's Blancpain 58 at 39mm spans about 47 to 48mm lug-to-lug, around 1.2 to 1.23. These ratios fall far below 1.618, yet they occupy a zone often described as golden. In its feel, balanced, comfortably scaled and visually anchored. When a watch deviates from this zone, the response is immediate and universal. It wears larger than the numbers, it feels boxy, the proportions are off. Our wrists recognise disharmony long before our conscious minds do. The dial is where proportional systems become apparent. When analysts overlay golden rectangles, Fibonacci spirals or classical grids onto certain iconic watches, the alignments are striking, not as rigid formulas, but as evidence of a design vocabulary steeped in centuries of proportional theory. The A-Lange and Söhne Lange 1 is the clearest example. Lange has publicly referenced the influence of the golden ratio and its off-centre arrangement. The cluster of the hours, settings, date aperture and power reserve indication aligns with proportional guidelines familiar to students of classical geometry. The Audemars Piguet Royal Oak, while not officially described by AP as a golden ratio composition, sits comfortably within analysis that shows the octagon and dial subdivisions aligning with golden rectangles. Gérald Genta was known for his sensitivity to harmonious proportion. These alignments reflect an educated design instinct rather than literal calculations. The Omega Speedmaster's tri-compacts layout also reveals harmonic spacing when analysed through these frameworks. Similarly, many Cartier tanks and Santos models reflect the influence of architectural proportional systems, a natural heritage given Louis Cartier's fascination with classical French design. None of this requires explicit invocation of the golden ratio. It is enough that the proportions conform to the same organisational logic that has governed art, architecture and typography for centuries. A dial designed along these principles feels calm, legible and resolved. A dial that violates them, it feels busy, tense or unsettled. If you enjoy this type of deep dive into horology and watchmaking theory, hit the Fibonacci sequence compliant subscribe button below. It's completely free and it will help me grow the channel to bring you more content just like this. Thank you. Hands and markers follow a hierarchy that closely mirrors the psychological clarity created by Fibonacci-like scaling. The minute hand is typically around 1.5 to 1.6 times the length of the hour hand. Seconds hands nearly always extend towards the outer track, and hour markers follow a hierarchical pattern, long at 12, medium at the cardinal axes, shorter at intermediate positions. This sequence creates an intuitive priority of information. The eye knows where to look first, what to interpret next, and what to treat as contextual background. It is proportional order in functional form. Once again, the link to Fibonacci is not one of derivation, but of resemblance, a natural hierarchy that mirrors the way the human perceptual system prefers structured information. Even bezels, often dismissed as purely functional components, exhibit proportional tendencies that fall into harmonious patterns. Dive bezels frequently use numeral sizing, marker thickness and triangle geometry that produce balanced, aesthetically stable layouts. Whether intentional or instinctive, the consistency across brands is notable. Blancpain, Rolex, Panerai, Doxa, Seiko, many others utilise marker scaling that echoes classical proportion. The effect is not about mathematical purity, it is about visual stability. A bezel that aligns with harmonic proportion looks balanced even at a glance. When it doesn't, the eye senses it immediately. Bracelet taper is one of the most underrated contributors to a watch's comfort and beauty. The ubiquitous taper from 20mm to around 16mm at the clasp is a subtle echo of sequential proportional reduction. Each link narrows slightly, creating a flow reminiscent of natural contraction patterns. Rolex executes this with exceptional finesse. Omega follows similar logic with some of their watches. Even entry-level brands replicate the principle because the human wrist prefers it. Poor taper disrupts the entire aesthetic. Good taper disappears entirely. Harmony is felt more than it is seen. Case shapes, logos, classical symmetry, proportion also appears in shapes that recur throughout watchmaking. Panerai's cushion cases align closely with golden rectangle-like structures. Omega's symbol fits comfortably within classical grids. Even the spacing of the Rolex coronet shows deliberate arc and interval design. None of these are advertised as exercises in the golden ratio, but analysis consistently reveal classical proportional thinking behind their construction. Designers trained in industrial and graphic design naturally lean towards these systems because they create stability and recognisability. The same is true across creative disciplines, architecture, typography, product design, photography and even automotive design. The Porsche 911 provides a powerful analogy. Porsche does not officially claim to design the 911 using the golden ratio, yet independent proportional analysis of that car throughout the generations of it show that the car's silhouette aligns closely with golden rectangles, spirals and harmonic subdivisions. The roof apex often aligns with golden verticals. The rear window fits naturally within a golden spiral. The relationship between wheelbase, overhangs and body length sits near harmonic ratios. The classic round headlights, they occupy positions that follow proportional spacing systems, analogous to those used in human facial design. This is not numerology, it is industrial design functioning within the constraints of natural proportion. The 911 evolves endlessly, wider, longer, more aerodynamically refined, yet the proportions remain so consistently harmonic that the car's identity survives every iteration and every generation. That same phenomenon occurs in watchmaking. A Rolex Submariner remains a Submariner because its proportional language is preserved. right through the generations of it, from the original 1953 to the very latest modern references that start with 1-2. The language is preserved throughout all of those generations, even when its components evolve. I myself used to own one of the most Fibonacci compliant cars ever built, the Audi TT. It's no accident this car has its place in the Guggenheim and has won many design awards. The version I owned was a slightly less Fibonacci compliant Mark II TT, but that was the one where the looks and the dynamic package came together. I would say the best in its 25-year production run. Let's talk about H.R. Geiger and the geometry of the uncanny. An unexpected but instructive parallel comes from the work of H.R. Geiger. Geiger never claimed to use Fibonacci or golden rectangles, yet analysis of his biomechanical art reveals structures deeply rooted in natural growth patterns. The elongated arc of the xenomorph skull aligns convincingly with a golden spiral. The repeating vertebra-like elements in Necronome 4 follow proportional spacing reminiscent of Fibonacci sequences. His organic industrial forms are grounded in the geometry of biology, and biology itself is a system of natural proportion. The effect is unsettling precisely because it is mathematically coherent. We recognise the structure even as we recoil from the form. This connection underscores a deeper truth. Human beings react to proportion before they react to content, and you see this in watches all the time and how people react to them. So who was Fibonacci? Fibonacci was one of the most influential mathematicians of medieval Europe. He didn't invent the number sequence named after him, but he introduced it to a European audience. His achievements reshaped European mathematics, commerce, engineering and architecture. Think of all those streets in major cities, especially the grid pattern ones. They're all modelled in Fibonacci principles. Fibonacci also introduced Arabic numerals to a Middle Ages European audience. Yet another stellar contribution to horology. His influence can be seen all through horology, from spiral water clocks, sundials and almost every contemporary iconic watch design in existence. What emerges from all of this is not a claim that watch designers secretly build dials and cases with golden compasses or Fibonacci charts. Rather, it is that the most enduring, satisfying designs, whether it's watches, cars, furniture or art, they tend to align with proportional systems embedded in nature and internalised by human perception. The golden ratio and the Fibonacci sequence are not rules, they are reflections of a broader principle. Objects feel right when their relationships replicate the mathematics of natural growth, visual hierarchy and spatial harmony. A watch designed within these principles does not simply look correct, it feels correct. It resonates at a much deeper level than conscious analysis allows. You don't need to know the geometry to sense it. Your eyes know, your brain knows, and your wrist knows. Design is paramount to success in any industry, none more so than modern watchmaking. And remember, watch collecting isn't logical, but it is horological.